Today we're going to talk about whether or not you should spend $185 on a coffee scale. And yes, that is how much this scale, the Fellow Tally Pro Studio Edition, costs. And you might be wondering, and the answer is yes, it does almost the exact same thing as this coffee scale from Amazon, which costs $15. So what makes this scale, the one from Fellow, worth over $150 more? And under what circumstances might you want to consider getting one? Let's talk about it. I received this scale from Fellow earlier this year before they launched these actually. You can still see it's got the sample sticker there on the back. And with the launch of the Tally Pro Studio Edition, they are claiming to have produced the ultimate coffee scale. So that's a pretty lofty claim, but let's look at why they're saying that. So it weighs about 585 grams, which is over half a kilogram. You know, it feels very heavy, very premium, which is good. It's got this weigh pan, which I like this. Like, you started to see this disappear. Akaya really popularized the integrated weigh plate and display, and it feels refreshing. Like, I was glad to see that back. The top here is glass, so it gives you a very premium vibe. And this weigh plate and the button here are both coated in metal as well, so that's fantastic. Something I really liked is this actually just pops off, which is nice. Same with the button here, it pops right off. So, you know, you can get in there, all the nooks and crannies, and kind of clean that glass a little bit more easily, which you're gonna be doing a lot. So we'll talk about that in a minute too. But overall, it kind of feels like a very solid package. It charges with USB-C here at the back, and it's got this little button with 3 dots on it that toggles between the 3 modes. So you have timer mode, which will show you kind of the weight and the time side by side, a lot like that cheap scale from Amazon. You have just weigh mode, which will just show you the weight, and brew assist mode, which we're going to talk about in a minute. One thing that I really like about this scale is the screen, and I didn't realize how much I was missing this with other scales that I had used, but I just want to say thank you to Fellow for releasing a scale with a screen that feels like it belongs in 2023. You know, no more of this like 7-segment displays, scales that feel like they have a screen on them that belongs on a calculator from 1989. This is just a nice pixel perfect OLED screen. It just feels nice and right. So that is a very nice premium feature that you're definitely not seeing on other scales, even other scales that are very expensive like this one. Because of that OLED screen, it's gonna blend perfectly into the glass top, and it's a little bit hard to capture on camera how nice it looks, but it really, you can't see any of that gray outline of where the screen would be. It just kind of blends seamlessly into the black top. And it's also gonna give you a warning long before your battery dies, which is a great feature too. So overall, as a package, it all feels very kind of polished and premium, which is fantastic. The brew assist mode is something that is really cool, and I don't know how other scale manufacturers hadn't integrated something like this first. But if you are just getting into pour over, it's very helpful for you to know that you should be weighing your coffee. And once you do that, you're going to be wanting to kind of pour with a coffee to water ratio that you want to kind of pick as a standard. A lot of people pick 1:16. There's a little bit of math that's involved in that. And what this does is when you're using the brew assist mode, it kind of makes all of that a little bit more simple for you. You put your stuff on, tear the scale, and then put your coffee in, and it will detect, hey, a certain amount of coffee. It will apply the ratio of water to coffee that you want to be using and tell you exactly how much water you need to be pouring. Then when you hit the timer button, it will automatically detect when you start pouring in the water, start timing, and then the display will actually change color once you get to the target weight. Now for me, most of the time I do a 16-gram pour over. And whatever amount of coffee you're using, eventually you're probably going to be able to memorize the ratio of coffee to water that you normally use. But what gets actually tedious is measuring out exactly 16 grams of coffee every morning. You know, you're pulling 1 bean out or putting 2 in. It's a little tedious and you don't really think about it. What's nice about this is you can kind of just chuck whatever amount of coffee in there, and if it's 16.5, if it's 15.7, it will automatically calculate the right amount of water for you. It kind of comes alongside you and enables your laziness to give you just a perfect pour, which I kind of like that. Oh, And it's also got a video game on it. So if you go into brew assist mode, turn it all the way to 1 to 42, and then press the timer button, it will let you play a little game called Jumpy, which I'm not sure how valuable that is, but it is very fun. Also, if you haven't noticed this, it really strongly kind of brings across that signature Fellow design language. So if you've already sprung for that really expensive EKG Pro Studio Edition kettle with like the glass top, you put this next to it, it just is gonna give you that aesthetic on your brew bar. But do all those things make this the ultimate coffee scale? And I think that's a question we need to answer. And if you're gonna call your scale the ultimate, I think we should judge it by that standard and get a little bit nitpicky with this. The top detractor for me by far on this scale is the amount of cleaning. It is a fingerprint magnet. You know, even if your carafe is a little bit wet, you know, you've rinsed it off and you do your pour over or whatever, and there's a little bit of water on the bottom, it's gonna leave a ring on this plate. And the glass, if a drop of water kind of sprays out and lands on there, it's gonna leave a ring. You're gonna be wiping it down all the time. Now, it's nice that all the parts kind of come off and make it easier to clean, but you're gonna be doing that a lot if you like a clean brew bar and clean equipment, which at a premium price, you probably do. Also, they advertise metal touch points, which is technically true. If you take these two parts and flip them over, you can see it is plastic on the inside with a very thin metal ring around here. So technically you're touching metal, but it still is largely plastic. And the same goes for this weigh plate right here. Also, something that you'll see a lot is people complain that the button rocks a little bit. So that's something to factor in. It's also got no Bluetooth or app connectivity and no flow rate measurement. Some smart scales have that. I have ones that do that. I never use it, so that's not a huge deal breaker for me. It's also obviously way too big for most espresso machines unless you have an absolutely huge espresso machine, and it's water resistant, but not waterproof. So probably this is going to be a filter exclusive scale for you. Also, this is really nitpicky, but it's the ultimate scale, right? This button right here, the timer one, and this mode button right here. They're in this glass face and they're made of plastic. So they are black, but it's not quite the same black as the glass top. It's not quite as deep. So when you're looking at it on an angle, they kind of can look a little hazy in comparison to the glass, which is a very deep, rich black. You know, I would normally let something like that slide, but I just want to mention it here because of the way they're positioning the scale. Now, those things being said, this has pretty quickly and over an extended period of time become my favorite scale to use for filter. It's totally premium, it's polished, it feels put together, it makes other competitor scales feel almost out of date, and in my opinion, this is probably the best scale for filter coffee that is on the market right now. Now, should you buy one? That's another question entirely. If you own a cafe and you have baristas who are in there doing, you know, hand-done pour-overs on V60s, this feels like it would be right at home in a setting like that. And I think it probably would be a good investment for your team. The brew assist feature takes a lot of the brain work out. It's great. Now, if you're a home user, should you spend $185 on a coffee scale? That's a lot more difficult of a question to answer. You know, putting a price on premium experience, it's kind of a tricky thing to do. I have to say, I use a lot of coffee scales, and when I go to make filter coffee, this is the one that is coming out of my cabinet. Now, I like nice things. If I'm going to be touching something, using it every single day, I want the experience of doing that to feel very nice, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that. Now, are you in that position where, you know, you want that nice experience, that nice look to be part of your daily experience with your coffee? Then I think the Tally really does rise to the occasion if that's something that you value. On the other hand, if you find this whole conversation ridiculous, then the Tally Pro probably does some nice things, but maybe not for you. Now, I would actually love to hear from you. Are you a Tally Pro owner? I would love to hear why you decided to buy it. If you're not, is this something that you would consider saving up for and making a bit of a splurge purchase to bring that element into your daily routine? Or do you find that that is all a little bit silly, given that you could buy something for $15 on Amazon that does more or less the same thing? I would love to hear from you in the comments. I hope your next cup of coffee is fantastic, and we'll see you next time.